The air stank of fresh paint and desperation that humid July evening when the HOA enforcers rolled up to our cul-de-sac in their golf cart. Tires crunching on the gravel like bones underfoot. Karen Mitchell, self-appointed queen of Willow Creek Estates, sat up front, her peroxide blonde bob gleaming under the streetlights, clipboard clutched like a scepter. Her sidekick, Gary, a wiry man with a mustache that screamed midlife crisis, gripped the wheel, his knuckles white. They were here for war over a goddamn flower bed. My flower bed, the one my daughter, Ellie, had planted with me last spring. A riot of marigolds and lavender that dared to spill an inch over the HOA's precious guidelines. I stood on my porch, arms crossed, the weight of a long day pressing on my chest, watching them approach like vultures circling a fresh kill. Karen's voice sliced through the dusk, sharp as a switchblade. Margaret, your yard's a disgrace. Fix it by tomorrow, or we fine you $500. Her lips curled, smug, as if she'd already won. I wanted to scream, to tell her where to shove her fine, but my throat tightened. Ellie wasn't homeshed, been gone for weeks, working some case she couldn't talk about. I missed her laugh, her way of making everything lighter. This fight with Karen felt heavier without her. I took a breath, the air thick with the scent of jasmine and my own rising anger. It's 1 inch, Karen. 1 inch. You measured it yourself last week. My voice shook, not from fear but from the sheer absurdity of it all. She'd been hounding me for months, first the mailbox color, then the fence height, now this. Every petty rule was a power trip, a way to remind me I didn't belong in her perfect little kingdom. Gary shifted in the cart, his eyes darting to Karen like a dog waiting for a command. Rules are rules, she snapped, scribbling something on her clipboard. The pen scratched like nails on a chalkboard. You've had warnings. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Her tone dripped with condescension, the kind that made you want to throw something. I clenched my fists, nails biting into my palms. The neighborhood was quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that hums before a storm. Somewhere, a dog barked, a sprinkler hissed. Life went on, oblivious to the war brewing on my lawn. Then came the screech of tires. A black SUV roared into the cul-de-sac, headlights cutting through the twilight like a predator's eyes. My heart leapt. Ellie. The doors flew open, and there she was, my daughter, all 5'6" of her, striding forward in a navy blazer, her FBI badge glinting on her belt. Her dark hair was pulled back tight, her jaw set, but her eyes, God, those eyes burned with a fire I hadn't seen since she was a teenager fighting bullies in the schoolyard. Behind her, 2 agents flanked her, hands resting on holsters, their faces unreadable. The air shifted, heavy with something new, danger. Karen froze, her clipboard trembling in her hands. Gary's mustache twitched like a cornered rat. What's this? Karen demanded, her voice pitching high, betraying a crack in her armor. She didn't know. How could she? Ellie hadn't been home in months, and I'd never told Karen my daughter was FBI. Why would I? Karen thrived on gossip, and I wasn't about to feed her machine. Ellie didn't answer right away. She stopped a few feet from the golf cart, her boots clicking on the pavement, deliberate, like the tick of a bomb. Mrs. Mitchell, she said, her voice low, controlled, but laced with an edge that could cut glass. Step out of the cart. Now. Karen laughed, a brittle, nervous sound that echoed in the still air. Excuse me, this is private property. You can't just. Out. Now. Ellie's words were a blade. No room for argument. The agents behind her shifted, their presence a silent threat. Karen's face flushed red, her mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. Gary, for once, was smart enough to stay quiet, his hands gripping the wheel so hard I thought it might snap. I stepped off the porch, my heart pounding, the grass cool under my bare feet. Ellie, what's going on? My voice was barely a whisper, caught somewhere between pride and fear. She glanced at me, her eyes softening for a split second before hardening again. Mom, stay back. This isn't about the flowers. Not about the flowers. My stomach twisted. The air felt heavier now, thick with the metallic tang of tension. Karen finally climbed out of the cart, her heels wobbling on the uneven ground. This is outrageous, she shrieked, jabbing a manicured finger at Ellie. You can't talk to me like that. I run this neighborhood. That's when it happened. Gary, the quiet one, the follower, reached under his seat and pulled out a handgun. The metal gleamed under the streetlights, cold and real. My breath caught, a sharp gasp that burned my lungs. Time slowed, the world narrowing to that single point of danger. The gun wasn't pointed at Might, was aimed at Ellie. My Ellie. Drop it. One of the agents shouted, his own weapon drawn in a heartbeat. The other agent moved to flank Gary. Their movements smooth, practiced. Karen screamed, stumbling backward, her clipboard clattering to the ground. I wanted to run to Ellie, to shield her, but my legs were lead, rooted to the earth. Ellie didn't flinch. Her voice was steady, almost calm, as she stared down the barrel. Gary, you don't want to do this. Put it down. Her words were soft, but they carried the weight of someone who'd faced worse than a desperate man with a shaky grip. My heart hammered, each beat a prayer. The sprinklers hissed in the distance, a cruel reminder of normalcy. Gary's hand trembled, sweat beading on his forehead. You're not taking me, he muttered, his voice cracking. You don't know what you're messing with. Oh, I know exactly what I'm messing with, Ellie said, stepping closer, her badge catching the light. You and Karen have been running a little side hustle, haven't you? Extortion, threats, skimming HOA funds. We've been watching you for months. My jaw dropped. Extortion, skimming. I thought Karen was just a power-hungry busybody, not a criminal. The pieces clicked into place, the endless fines, the neighbors who moved away after disputes, the whispers about missing money. My anger flared, hot and sharp, but it was drowned by fear as Gary's finger twitched on the trigger. Last chance, Ellie said, her voice a low growl now. Drop it, or you're done. The standoff stretched, each second an eternity. The air was thick with the scent of fierce sweat, metal, and the faint floral notes of my marigolds. A neighbor's curtain twitched across the street, a shadow watching the drama unfold. Then, from nowhere, a new voice cut through the tension. Gary, don't be an idiot. It was Mrs. Delaney, the quiet widow from 2 houses down, stepping out of her doorway, her frail frame wrapped in a cardigan. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook as she clutched her phone. I called the police weeks ago, told them everything. You think you're untouchable, but you're not. Her words hit like a thunderclap, unexpected, raw. I'd never known she'd been watching, documenting, waiting. She'd always seemed so fragile, so uninvolved. Now, her eyes blazed with defiance. Gary's resolve cracked. The gun wavered, then fell to the grass with a dull thud. The agents moved in, cuffing him before he could blink. Karen was next, her protests shrill and useless as they dragged her to the SUV. This is a mistake, she screamed, her perfect bob unraveling, strands sticking to her sweaty face. You'll hear from my lawyer. Ellie didn't respond. She turned to me, her face softening, and for a moment, she was just my daughter again, not the badass agent who just dismantled a neighborhood tyranny. You okay, Mom? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. The weight of it all, the fear, the pride, the relief crashed over me like a wave. I pulled her into a hug, her blazer rough against my cheek, her heartbeat steady against mine. You scared the hell out of me, I murmured. My voice thick. She laughed. A soft, shaky sound. Sorry. Had to make an entrance. As the SUVs pulled away, red and blue lights painting the cul-de-sac, I looked at my flower bed, the marigolds glowing in the fading light. They were still there, defiant, alive. Mrs. Delaney shuffled over, her eyes bright with something like victory. Told you I wasn't just knitting all day, she said, a sly smile tugging at her lips. The neighborhood would never be the same. Karen and Gary were gone, their reign of petty terror over. But it was more than that. It was about standing up, about fighting back, about the quiet ones like Mrs. Delaney, like Ellie, who carried the strength to change everything. I took a deep breath. The air cool now, the jasmine sweeter. Justice wasn't just a word tonight. It was real, and it bloomed right here, in my front yard.